You saw the title of the video, so yeah, I'm going to try to make Chaos Obliterators out of this box of Ambots from Necromunda. I start off by assembling them using the instructions provided, but then I quickly veer off track. On the first model, I sculpt over the shoulders to look more Space Marine-like, so they're rounded and they've got the trim on them. Sorry, I don't have the footage of that. I had to get really close up to make the trim look somewhat passable. And I want to turn this into a power fist with 5 fingers, so I made an Oyumaru mold and a green stuff copy. And then I separate the fingers of the copy and then glue them one on each side of the original. So now I got 4 fingers, but I still need a thumb. So I make another Oyumaru copy of one of the talons from a Furioso Dreadnought. And I trim that down so it's no longer pointy and it's more thumb-like. And I attach it under the, I guess you'd call it the index finger of the power fist. And then use some green stuff to kind of tie it all together. With 2 pieces of plastic, I widen the power fist to make up for that extra width from the new fingers. And to fill the gap that leaves, I'm using baking soda and super glue, which won't be the last time you see that in this build. And then I set that arm aside to work on the other arm, which you can see the sculpting of the shoulder pad looks a little bit different than the first one, but that's okay. And I want to attach this Mad Robot Miniatures Heavy Slugger to the side of the hand instead of making it another power fist. So I drill a hole and I glue that on there. But I use, again, some more pieces of plastic to make sure there's a solid connection between the gun and the hand. And I glued a thumb on this hand as well, but it's only going to have 3 fingers. The shoulder pad's different, so the hand might as well be different too. And then I attach the drums to the gun. I plan on using this head for the model. I think it matches up well because it's got vents just like the vents on the chest. So to make that fit, I have to cut out the center bit of this top part. I don't even know what you call it. And I drilled holes in the remaining parts of that top bit so they could be like cannons or something, I don't know. And I have to hollow out pretty much the entire inside of the torso, which I had already filled in with green stuff, so that was a bit of a waste. And then I use super glue and baking soda to attach the head and fill any gaps there might have been. And then I jump back to the power fist hand, and with some green stuff I smooth over the top of the hand and just kind of make it all one cohesive unit. And I also attach a combi melta, I think that's how you pronounce it, to the top of the fist so that there's some sort of weapon on that hand. With a bit of baking soda and super glue, I attach the right arm and move on to the second model. The first Obliterator looked a bit like a Terminator, so to make this one different, I want to make it look a bit more like a Dreadnought, and I'm using a Sentinel exhaust for the back of the torso. It lines up pretty close, and with a bit of baking soda and super glue, I fill any gaps between the 2 pieces, and then I glue the rest of the bits together like I was just building the regular torso. The legs were assembled without any alterations, so I went ahead and glued the legs to the torso. I know it's not technically a gun. Well, I mean, it's a chainsaw, so it's not a gun at all. But this Sentinel bit fit so perfectly, I had to use it. As for the other arm, I had notched out the front part of the shoulder where the arm attaches so that I could get a more, I guess it would be more horizontal angle. And the plan was to attach this Mad Robot Miniatures autocannon to that hand. I got the autocannon and the heavy slugger when I ordered bits for my last Chaos Cultist conversion. Check that video out if you haven't seen it. I'm just making sure I'm giving the proper credit. So I went about cutting the hand off, but I realized the autocannon didn't really fit in a way that looked about as natural as anything Chaos could be, I guess. So I instead used this heavy bolter, and then I glued a Space Marine melt-a-gun to the bottom of that. I went with this Chaos Space Marine helmet for the head, and I fixed that in there with baking soda and super glue. For the top, I don't know what you call it, the hood part, I melted some holes and then glued in some styrene rod to make it look like some sort of a cannon or something, which I had to cut down. I don't know why I made them that long. And then it was time to glue in that heavy bolter melt-a-gun arm. You can see where I used some green stuff to kind of clean up the transition between the arm and the gun. I also blended in the hose to the back of that sentinel exhaust piece. And of course, I'm using baking soda and super glue to attach the arm, just to make sure everything is in place and isn't going to move anywhere. And to finish up this obliterator, I made 2 copies of the head of a flathead screw and just covered up that hole on both sides of the chainsaw arm. They're definitely a little bit too big, but I didn't have anything smaller in the house, so maybe I'll replace them before I paint it. And off camera, I glued on the shoulder pads that came with this box of Ambots. So I probably could have called it quits after just 2 obliterators. I feel like every video I have to say I'm not a rules guy and I probably won't play, but you can have up to 3 obliterators, so see what I can do. So I made some Oyumaro molds of both the front chest piece and the top piece. Again, I don't know the anatomy of these robots, so forgive me for that. And I made green stuff copies of them. And I still had the back part of the torso from the second model because I replaced it with the Sentinel exhaust. So I took all those pieces and I glued them to the super technical, well-crafted cube of air dry clay. Yeah, this last obliterator is going to get a little bit janky. For the left arm, I made another power fist with the cut off part of the hand from the second model, and I glued 2 plasma pistols to the top of the hand, and I pinned that to the block of air dry clay with baking soda and super glue. I drill a hole in the air dry clay cube, and I pin a demon prince head with more baking soda and super glue. A pattern is starting to emerge. I tried using a Dreadnought assault cannon arm, but it was a little too bulky for my liking, so I grabbed the rotary tool and the cutoff wheel and took off that top angled bit. Not the smoothest cut, but close enough. So I covered the top of that with a rectangle of plastic and I drilled a hole in the middle, and you can see the mishmash of armature wire and styrene rod I used for the arm part of the shoulder. I drill another hole in the air dry clay and pin the shoulder with more super glue and baking soda. Not sponsored. The styrene rod fits into the hole in the plastic that I glued to the assault cannon, and the point that usually would attach the Dreadnought, I am just filling with baking soda and solidifying it with super glue. This arm ain't going anywhere. I extend the torso with more styrene rod so that I don't obstruct the hole in the side of the cannon. I don't have footage of it, but if I attach the legs without extending the torso, the cannon would be in the way, and I'd have to attach it at a weird angle so that the body wouldn't be facing the same direction as the legs. So it just works out that I extend the torso. But then I got this skinny torso. So I tried super gluing a strip of printer paper to try to bulk up the torso, but it didn't look right. Off camera, I bulked it up with green stuff, still didn't look right, so I switched to something else. I notched out the top of the torso to pin the autocannon I was originally going to use on the second model, and there was still a gap, so I used some green stuff and tried to fill that and smooth it out the best I could. In this shot, you can see I used a bunch of different gauges of guitar string and ran it from the hole in the assault cannon to the back of the model. It actually feeds into that block of air dry clay. And I used 2 pieces of guitar string and ran it from the front of the torso into the back and used a bit of styrene rod to make that look a little bit more mechanical. And I added another piece of styrene rod as like some sort of an exhaust or something, just so I didn't have that piece of exposed air dry clay I also filled the gap between the bit of plastic and the assault cannon with green stuff and smoothed that out and squared it up. And you can also see how janky that extended torso looks. It won't be in this video, but I will probably find a way to fix that before I paint it. And to finish off this third obliterator, I use a bit of green stuff and I round over the left shoulder. Somewhere in here I glued on the stock shoulder pad for this Ambot on the right side, and I wanted to keep some sort of asymmetry, so that's why I'm rounding over the left shoulder. And there you have it, a 2-pack Shakur of Ambots converted into 3 Chaos Obliterators. I attached them all to Terminator-sized bases, which I made out of milliput, and then just based with cork and different types of sand and pebbles. I think this first obliterator is my favorite just because the helmet and the chest both have vents, so it looks like it's supposed to be that way, as opposed to like an obvious conversion. Like this looks like it's supposed to be something from the Chaos Space Marines. At least that's what I think. The second one definitely looks more like a conversion in my opinion. I think maybe the shoulder pads give it away, but I really like that chainsaw arm, even if it doesn't follow the rules and it isn't a flesh metal gun. And I also like the exhaust in the back, which also gave me a spare piece to make the third obliterator. This guy is super janky, but I think it gives him some personality, at least I hope so. For as improvised as it was, I think the assault cannon arm turned out really well. But I still gotta figure out some way to fix that extended torso so it doesn't look so scrawny and awkward. I also forgot to mention that I added the clips to the autocannon on the top. I'll probably remove the inside clip and then sculpt like a box or something to feed into the top of the torso. But I'm done with these obliterators for now, so again, let me know what you thought of this conversion in the comments below. I'm a little bit burnt out on 40k stuff at the moment. Halloween is coming up, so I'm going to start working on more Halloween-centric projects. So if any of that interests you, subscribe. I'm not sure if there's much crossover to that, but I will return to 40k stuff in the future. And if you found any of this useful or entertaining, crooked moonsault the like button. And yeah, be excellent to each other, and I'll catch you later. I'm out.